sa ta be ye ra che ze la ma ta ba che na ma ye che gue pa la che ze je ne che yan da ra sa be de je se ma ye la sa ye che ye cha wa ya ba do so na ma yan da we se ye yan le she ba ye so yan jo ko la cha yan do mi nga yang ta me na ngo so go ra ba dan se de ba do me no de ba jo ta zo che ne sa be ge wa de yan da ro wa ge yan la ka be dan che yan ba la che ze lo ya sa yan cha ba de yan be ni yan bo re yan do sa che sho me me se be de che re se che me che be wa yang bo jang be yang te bo ma le yo yan ze sa we yan da ka je ke be zo ye zo ka yan ba lo ya za yan ta be sha la so wa yan de me me ze be de je re che me che be wa yang bo jang be yang te yang bo ma le jo yan ze sa be yan da ka je ke be so ye song ka ba lo ya sa yan cha be sha ya la so wa yan de me me ze be de je re se che me che be wang bo jang be te bo ma le jo yan ze sa we yan da ka je ke be so ye so ka ba lo sa yan ta be sha ya la so wa yan de pa yan de za we la ya ma re bo che ta ya so ji wo be ye me de sho ya la ka Sama Jayame Sherai Bhairo Yachin Maye Mayenga Namge Ngoyani Soy Soy Rari Ye She She Yewa Tenzin Dorjee Yola Chanzi Aloy Te Yoyanda Gayande Gayande Paira Gayande Paira Saman Gayande Boyande Zoyante Yoyanda Gayande Gayande Paira Gayande Paira Saman Gayande Boy Soyante Yoyanda Gayande Gayande Paira Gayande Paira Saman Gayande Boyande Zoyan Geren Dongran Jajo Shewa Damedene Tenpa Dorjee Pezon Dojo Len Dashi Le Yo Sai Shimbe Yo Sanjen Roba Ejo Sheda Zoje Chonan La Janjo Bado Dani Gyabzo Dagi Shugyo Jibe Sonam Jen Rola Benje Sanjen Roba Ejo
Sanje Tamje Toza Lana Meva Yangda Wazo Sanje Homarabo Chinaga Tawasha Tishi Tabe She Senya Kuno Shashu Sujuma Sinje Sedan Semashis.
Let me remind all of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate bodhicitta motivation, seeking complete enlightenment or Buddhahood for the sake of all kind mother sentient beings. With that kind of contrived bodhicitta motivation, we should all participate in this discourse. So where we left off in this commentary on the wisdom chapter of Bodhisattva Mahasattva Shantideva's Bodhisattva Chart Avatar, a guide to Bodhisattva's way of life. So we were talking about how karma produces its results. However long it takes, karmic action or karma is going to, generally speaking, produce or yield its results.
Susu Domaris, Lady Pasatil, the individual, Lay Shiva Shusa, Mashiba Tibet, Jonga Maris, or this of that.
So those of you who have this English translation of the commentary, Geshe went back to page 179 a little bit and started reading from the bottom of that page, and then I read most of the page 180 there. And so what we are dealing with here is how karma, it produces its effect or results. So when a karma is created, in its second moment, that karma cease to exist in the second moment. But it may take eons for that particular karma to yield its results. But it's very possible for a karma to bring out its effect or the result, however long it may take. And so how that works is that karma leaves its pakcha, the Tibetan word we have been translated as imprint, predisposition, what other things, latencies, and many other ways, right? Something is left on by that karma, and there's a basis upon which it's left. And then even after many eons, when that karma ripens, it brings its results. So therefore, Prasangikas are basically telling Nyayas, the logicians, non-Buddhists, and Vaisheshiks, the particularists, that you don't have to worry about, karma, once created, it doesn't simply get wasted. Karma will bring its result. That's what you are alleging us, right? That karma, it disintegrates, it's not going to bring result. But that's not, it's going to happen. And one is not going to experience results of a karma that one has not created, because those are cardinal aspects of the karma, right? You experience the result of the karma you created, but whatever karma you have created, it's not simply going to get wasted. No.
What is the basic say the without namshat me in the theater? Could marry the Zamin Timena and Korabe, Tabashi was using as my duty that Nangwam of the Shirova Timidua. She said, Shirova Ganga Takwa, he said, Kosa Tabash, Tabashi, and later to the Tabash in control. That was going gas and in the negative of Jujumar was it. She the later Taba, the later Kora Tabashi, or Sangi Konsa Kona Tabakora, Tata Lesa Kora wrong, Judanami Yomashu. Cotton about George Lesangeda individual Kakashina and Lemashiba Trevada, Shivashu Sanruris, Cross Toba Tedis or material.
So as we know that non-Buddhist schools of thought, particularly the case in point are the Nyayas, the logicians, and the Vaisheshiks, the particularists. So they assert or believe that a Purusha or a person or self has to be permanent. Okay? And so they believe that the law of karma and effect is permanent. Otherwise, how can you say that a karma can bring about its results? If it's not permanent, they think that, as you Buddhists are claiming, that if a karma is going to disintegrate in its second moment, so for them that disintegration means it becomes completely non-existent, isn't it? So how can a non-existent thing can yield its results? So you are violating a fundamental aspect of a karma, that karma gets simply wasted, right? That's one of their allegations against the Buddhist point of view. And then the second one, they said a person who has created karma has to be permanent, because it's the same person who created karma, and the same person has to experience the result. If that person is not permanent, something disintegrates, then it's like one person created the karma and another person experiences the result. So then you are violating another aspect of the karma, that one experiences the result of the karma that one has not created. right? So those are their argumentations, their allegations, their accusations, whatever you want to call them, against the Buddhists. But as Buddhists, all Buddhists, and particularly the Prasangikas are saying that it's because you have not understood the concept of momentary changes and disintegration, right? That's how you end up asserting that a person or a self has to be permanent, and karma and effects has to be permanent, right? That's how. For you, if something disintegrates, you are not able to assert the continuity of something across many moments of something. So this is how, in your philosophical school, you ended up, right, accepting a Purusha or person and the self as permanent, karma as permanent. But we don't have that problem, because in our school of thought, we say that things are impermanent and they undergo momentary changes or disintegration, but across these moments of disintegration changes, something is maintained, continuity, right? On the basis of that, then we say that person is impermanent. The one who created karma is the one who experienced the result, however long it takes, right, for the karma to ripen. So these are the different positions and debate between non-Buddhist school of thought and the Buddhist school of thought. So basically, Gisela has pretty much repeated the explanation she already gave to make sure that we understand, what the non-Buddhist schools of thought are, how should I say, alleging the Buddhist school of thought or arguing with them, and how Buddhists, respond to their argumentation or debate. And so according to the Buddhist school of thought, like karma is an impermanent phenomenon. And so once you create a karma, that karma ceases to exist. The cessation of the karma does not mean that the karma has become completely non-existent. That karma actually lives its predisposition or impression or latencies or the imprints and all these other incredible translations we have on something. So when the time comes, conditions are ripened, then that particular karma is going to ripen, So as a Buddhist, we don't have a problem to assert a person as impermanent, karma as impermanent, because it's only in the Buddhist school of thought that we usually call subtle impermanence, or that momentary changes and disintegration is accepted, right? In the non-Buddhist schools of thought, my footnote, basically we are talking about the Hindu schools of thought here primarily, not the Western thought. It might apply, but not here. So this is where, right, shall we say, the standpoint difference lies, isn't it? As a Buddhist, we say things undergo momentary changes, but across these changes, continuity is maintained. Karmic continuity, isn't it? Through the imprint, so then it's going to ripen. Whereas non-Buddhist school of thought said, but if something is impermanent, when it ceases to exist, it should become completely non-existent, then how can it ever produce a result? And how can a person who is impermanent and ceases to exist and then going to experience the result of that karma looks like two different people, right? So those are the big standpoint difference there.
What is that? and go do I shall enjoy man,
No.
any due to the debut to the Drekes and Judicial the later way,
No.
the latest shoes are to go over.
No. So that's how Buddhist schools of thought are saying that we, refute that karma is intrinsically existent, right? It's something where it exists intrinsically, it has to exist, right, permanently. And so when you claim that karma is permanent, which means it should not go any changes, if it doesn't go any changes, then how can it ever produce a result, right? Something has to go transformation or changes to bring the result. So you claim something is permanent, how a permanent thing can bring an effect, right? That requires some changes happening, right? So that's not feasible, right?
Tenzin Dorjee telecaris and the paro do chamota poa made this Ranjati manga shed Takarang Ranjashi in the big poya disa yomaris.
No, so.
Timmy Oma Tenzin Yimul Carsias and Tomba Koni Shonole, Toba Shonon Joan say so, give me Lenam. Round Geshe Gyeltsen, she can do me, you made. Later that Gabala wants to shop and say, Nami Gigi never can't job, she says. Sedakena, Taturia, Nami Job, Pasha, Kid of the. And it's a little shad, the middle of that the carriers and Corsa, Shedda, Kaja Shiramo, Dodeva Kaji, semi juice. The Kansa said, semi juice, the carriers less have a nigger down, division nigger, semi juice, what it does, and the lay Mashiba, Shivashi Sagmari, juice what is. But today, semi-Jews the lagres.
No.
That seems about the Gujas and that Gujas and the Tere. Because the Kansa say it was it. That's what the Kansa, the Dimakaris and Kivaling at the cigar, the Gujas, that Gush do get to the Gush cigar. Gush may do this. Ronja say he now she said. That Ronju Kasa, almost 10 years the say his the Duga Martina. And the Pungal then doesn't watch your teacher Shagaris, Kojiquat, said that live Pasa Shagati, Koza, Unity Pasa Shagari, Pasa Delta in the Jubium Guri. He is the Leokoran Ghana like Jewish Sagmaris, or this was that.
So Geshe's explanation pertains to what you find on top of page 180 and so Prasangikas, of course, here represents the Buddhist school of thought, kind of telling the Nyayas and the Vaisheshiks that we do not assert that the karma, without ceasing, it can produce its result. When you create karma, it ceases to exist, but it leaves its imprint, impression, latencies on something, isn't it? So there's some continuity maintained, but the karma itself, right, has ceased to exist. If it doesn't cease to exist, it cannot produce its results. So that's what Prasangikas are telling them. And so to support that, we have a quotation from the Madhyamika Essence of Interdependence on top of page 180. From phenomena that are only empty, none other than empty phenomena arise, and so forth, right? And so here what we find is that for example, next line says, virtuous and unvirtuous actions disintegrate in their second instant or moment, but there is no problem with their producing effects. And this is because when actions orient towards cessation, they have a basis upon which there is posited the potency of the action to elicit maturation. So as Geshe explained, that there has to be a basis for the law of karma to function, isn't it? So if the karmic imprint, it exists, right? It exists on something. And so what is that basis? And this is where different schools of thought come with different assertions. For example, some Southern Tikas and Kashmiri Vaibhashikas, these are all Buddhist schools of thought, they said, well, this is where we said, the continuity that's maintained is the what's called Semgyjun, continuity of the mind, isn't it? So karma is created, it ceases to exist, it leaves its impression, latency on the continuity of the mind, because the continuity of the mind exists, right, from A to point B. When you're creating the karma, that continuity is there. And so when we experience the result, when the karma brings the result, that continuity is there, right? So on the basis of this continuity, we said that it's feasible for karma to produce its effect. So that's how some Southern Tikas and Kashmiri Vaibhashikas say. Now, some, Chitta Martins or Martins schools say, we assert Aliyam Vijnan, or the storehouse consciousness, the fundamental consciousness, isn't it? And so for them, like a person has to be findable, isn't it, in the mindfulness school. We have to be able to say there is a person, findable. So what is that findable Purusha or person? They said, well, it's the storehouse consciousness. So this storehouse consciousness, it continually exists. So therefore, on the basis of this, we can say karma, when created, ceases to exist, but it will produce its result, right, based on this storehouse consciousness, and then you experience it. So their explanation of that. And then, like say, Sevatandaka Madhyamikans, so for them, the illustrative example, Chenshi of a person is, again, the Yiji number 7, mental consciousness, isn't it? So I said, well, that's what something exists, right, continuously, and on the basis of that, we can explain how feasible a karma is to produce its effect, even if it takes a long time. And then comes the Prasangika say, for us, it's just a mere designation. A person is merely designated onto the collection of their aggregates, right? So that merely designated thing, it continues, because the aggregates have a continuity, the person has a continuity. So on the basis of that, we say it's feasible for karma to produce its result. So as you can say, different Buddhist schools of thought come up with their explanation to account for how karma is impermanent, it undergoes momentary changes, but across these changes, on the basis of something, right, that one experiences the result of that karma.
What is that picture? The Yamanus, Kazakwana, Shibashavan, Junishavan, Lay Yungin, Korantan Shago, that day, Mindra, the Kajik Karzan, Kazashirama, Kajik, Pulo, Jata, Pang, Javi, Shum is the white. And the Kajik Tabashiva in Shagoris. The India laid the joy of my brother, Pulo, Jas and the Kemjara.
No.
Or the Kemjada go Pulo in Jawas with Yamara. So the Pulo Tiag, so she was called Pulo the Jawas means. The teacher and the Karsa laid the job goes Yamako, Tongshan or yes, thatHendaka, Lesanga, the Junior Jawal and Yagueza, and Katasa to go at the joy of the tea. She that Kajashama said, Tawada said, in the Pulojana, he was to let the music joy of let the Tongshan race, or Joseph that is your race or it.
So then the third paragraph on page 180, they said that alternatively, some Vaibhashikas assert they call something in Tibetan called Chumisava, which literally means unwasted, right? But here translated as the non-perishing, right? That's fine too. Which is like a promissory note, right? As Geshe explained. So in this case, it's kind of interesting that a karma does not simply get wasted, because they assert a phenomenon called non-perishing or unwasted kind of aspect of a unwasted, entity, aspect of karma. So what is that unwasted aspect? They said metaphorically it's like a promissory note, right? The promissory note is almost like a reminder, hey, you owe me money. Did you see the sign here, right? But it's not the same as the karma itself, isn't it? So the promissory note, what they assert, and the karma are two different things, isn't it? Right? Two different entities. So therefore, there's the promissory note means you did it, didn't you? Here, look at your signature. So that's what they say. Then, some other schools of Vaibhashikas, they said, well, we assert something called thoba, here translated as acquisition or obtaining something, all right, that's what it is. And so there are all these different assertions. So basically, all Buddhist schools are saying that karma doesn't get wasted, right? And now they try to explain that. There's some entity other than the karma, almost like a promissory note, that accounts for the karma bringing its result, or we call it acquisition or something like that, right?
Tibetan nami jiji di pharmacy di judes she jibu nuva tujen di choba but di nami jema rangde da de se karisana tada geji nuva lesa di geji neba ne ma geji sanjo ma sha ne kanzo de da ko den shen da chen lady do the meow, never touching race on her. And to the Jew, you think I'm going to do what he saw.
So Buddhist schools of thought come up with different explanation as for the basis of the karma and how the continuity is maintained on that basis. But all of them agree that once the karma is created in the second moment, it already ceases to exist. Maybe it has left its imprint, impression, or something. And so when the time comes for that karma, right, the potency is ready to ripen, maturation, then other conditions are going to, right, activate that karma. That's how the karma fruitions, right? And all Buddhists accept that,
What is it? I tell you, Karsana, tell you, Leraji Trevor Madro Davis, Leraji Jamela. Teacher, later she got amazing messaging. Tanya them the Legawa Shiba. I Shiba do move shit table. Lega, you don't know. Rounded Jimba Mingiways. Taudo Dennis, she miss out. Kunshi so, jo me guso. Titaras, Zahiles, consider Lenny Jami, Titarashi me teacher, consider Majepa, Tijiri Shimisa, your Shesums. But tell you of the thousands and joy can your maris. In a cop, late Saturday, the Tobata was a big doing your shoes, I said, because I did go my day. Could you shoes out here? Nobody of the US, and nobody do my but to do the said, and late Geshe Phuntsok Gyeltsen. And the dynamic gave a mamma the new angel in June Joy, the Tobata Remoto, Ramon Yamaris, and Tobata Naviati race. Or the 10 years that day, because she was out to the Sham of Goshe, the Tobata take race, this is what.
So at the bottom of page 180 and top of page 181, there's a citation. So that represents the Prasangika school of thought, right? And as Krishna explained, so for Prasangikas, nothing exists intrinsically at all, right? So which includes karma as well. Karma does not exist in and of itself intrinsically, but it exists as a mere designation. Conventionally speaking, right, karma is nothing but a mere designated reality, and the continuity right, is also a merely designated reality. And the effect of the karma is a merely designated reality, isn't it? There's nothing to be found to be called, here's the karma, here's the continuity, here's the effect. Everything is merely designated. And so therefore, Prasangikas feel that we do not have to end up with the same assertions that you have. You come up with all this, you in a sense like other Buddhist schools of thought. Some Vaisheshikas said, well, there's something called non-perishing thing, right? Like a promissory note. Because for them, something has to be findable under ultimate analysis, right? Prasangikas says nothing is findable under ultimate analysis. So we don't have that problem. We don't have to come with the acquisition of a karma, the promissory note like a karma. We don't have that issue. Everything conventionally exists. Everything is a mere designation, and it works fine because we accept that every karma has the potentiality, right, to bring its result, however long it takes. So we don't have to say, well, that potency is a non-perishing one, acquisition one, something. We don't have all that issue because you assert things from the point of findability. We don't have that issue at all. So therefore, they cite here the Fundamental Wisdom Treatise of Mula Madhyamika, and which states on top of page 181, since an action does not arise, meaning intrinsically, it does not have intrinsic existence, its not arising is the reason for its not perishing. So they refer to this fundamental wisdom lines to support their contention. So Prasangikas in a nutshell says, we don't have to get into all that complicated things you are end up with, right? Because we don't assert anything has to be findable under ultimate analysis as you do, right? And so therefore, we do not have to find something to pinpoint that this is non-perishing or this is acquisition, this is something else, right? So we don't have all of that like a complexity here. We just said everything is merely imputed by terms and concepts, right, including karma, and it exists conventionally and it just functions as such, So Prasangikas contain that everything is merely designated or imputed by terms and concepts, especially what we call Rangjin talk about the conceptual perception of whatever that is. So it's basically designated by that conceptual cognition here. But when we said that conceptual cognition has designated something, Prasangikas don't say that it has to necessarily exist. Right? There are things which are conceptually designated, they don't exist at all. But all the things that exist, they are also merely designated as such. So the example given, as Geshe said, for example, we have a real snake, which is merely designated reality, right, by its conceptual designation. We have, easy to say, fake snake. Of course, in the Buddhist text, like this coiled rope, look like a snake is too much to say, right? So we have a fake snake there. It's also merely designated reality. So as a merely designated realities, they both are same. There's no difference, isn't it? The real snake is merely designated by its conceptual cognition. The fake snake is merely designated by its conceptual cognition. The difference between is that the real snake, right, can bite you, poison you, but the fake snake cannot. So the only difference we see is from functionality point of view, isn't it? The real snake is able to have that functionality, right, to do the real snake thing, but the fake one, that's the only difference. As a merely designated phenomena, they're exactly the same, you know. That's what the Prasangikas are saying.
Oh, dear. But the bad of Shiran, the Ranjo mentioned the Delta, they make Juma bad of Shara.
No, so.
That thing you have a tablet do.
No, so.
She tablet you couldn't carry take care that tablet do said, got over you go to 2 or
No.
that Jumeta said to Zinia, using one chick may not penetrate the good one.
No, so.
But you should don't tribute say, you long eye, middle eye, demo, middle eye, Yingala eye, think you are the man.
No.
You should not have demo, you don't know where Marwa.
No, so.
I said, you go on a you see when you said the wrong things.
No, so.
That tells you was Toba does you see when you haven't you want your mother.
No. So Geshe says that even within our Buddhist schools of thought, let's say looking within Madhyamikans or the Middle East schools. So we have 2 schools, Prasangika Madhyamika on the top and Savatandika Madhyamika a little bit below there. Okay? Savatandika Madhyamikans, Umar Rangyuba in Tibetan, and the schools below, Buddhists, right? And so for them, how phenomena exists is like there's something existing from its side and something is imputed onto it, isn't it? So it's a combination of subjective designation and objective existence, right? So it's a combo. It's a combo, number one, you can say number one, it's combo. Okay? And so the best example for them works is the magicians, right? You know, a magician has to use some tricks and pebbles we call douching, right? Otherwise, you can't do the magic. And then you have spectators here. And so what the magician does is the magician has tricks and pebbles, right, magic material. We have the spectators who are here, you know, who want to see the magic. And then you use the mantras, incantation, to create the magic. So now in this case, you have to put the mantra on the pebbles and on the eyes of the spectators, isn't it? Now through this combination, you can see the magic. But if they only put the mantra on the pebbles, not on the spectators, the magic doesn't work. Or vice versa. You can mantraize, now new English word, the spectators, but you don't mantraize the pebbles, magic doesn't work. So they said something has to be there objectively, then something is subjectively played. So it's a combination of things, that's how it works. So for them, the magic, the example works best, isn't it? Right? They don't say 50-50, but it's a combination of subjectivity and objectivity. That's how Savatandika Madhyamikans, so something has to be findable, right? And schools below. For Prasangikas, right, it's all subjectivity. It's merely designated thing, right? Nothing has to exist, nothing does exist from objectivity side. So their preferred example is the coiled rope appearing as snake, isn't it? You know what I mean? So when you misapprehend a fake snake as a snake, there's nothing in that a little bit as a real snake, isn't it? Everything is just your mere perception, projection, isn't it? Because there's nothing to be found as a snake there, and it doesn't have to be. So that example works really well for the Prasangikas, their standpoint. It's all designation, subjective projection, nothing required to exist there, and nothing is there, right? So you see the difference, right? Yeah.
Oh, there's tell you that Ronju or the Kevado, you didn't cut Chego, that can say. You made you don't know that you don't ya jian xian zuo guo me wo qiao zhe zhe wa wo didn't he said in 롱주바 도바다서 요마르시고 저
talk yes something
도바다서 다서 요마르바
나래
어제다 도바다서 지고 이나네 되게 유신은 가 잡셔는 가서 맞아세 누가 잡셔는 대가랑 게 되기다 나도 못 왔어 고야 누가
no
어제 네 가서 요거 다도 되는 거 그러죠
no so as you can see the clear distinction between the standpoint of Prasangika Madhyamikans and Buddhist school below and the Prasangikas, isn't it? And so that's why Savatandaka Madhyamikans and schools below in the Buddhist school, they do not accept merely designated reality. They accept designation, okay, or the imputation labeling, but merely that's the instrumental word. Some, right? They said no, okay. And so their example is that, hey, we have pebbles here, magician, right? If everything is merely designated, then he said we don't have to mantraize all of those things, right? Just everything should come up, but it doesn't, right? If you only put mantra on one, not on the other, no magic comes up. If you do on the both, so then out of the combination, magic happens, isn't it? Whereas for Prasangikas, everything is mere designation. Nothing exists objectively, nothing is required to exist objectively. So it works well. So that's a big difference between. So there's a difference between merely designated or mere designation and just a designation conceptual.
Oh, that could cause Chevajo, Begon Hakutua, Begon citizen, Dobetasumda, using your Nizo Goyati in a Taja do Sonto Mudua.
No.
That usually Sonto or
No.
that 10 years there because Tomajo Sonsa and Taja do Gangatson. Belia, 10 years lower than Taja do the Paya share. Ranjush in the division that Paya
So that's why when we look at the examples they prefer, they use it, right? The examples they really make sense, isn't it? In both cases, you know what I mean? And that magician with the pebbles and the mantra and thing, it really doesn't work to explain the Prasangika standpoint, because something has to be objectively exist, isn't it? And that doesn't work. Whereas the coiled rope as a snake, the fake snake as a snake, doesn't work with the Savatandaka Madhyamikas, right? Because something has to exist from its own side, But in each of those schools, their example makes really good sense. And the examples clearly differentiate between the two schools of thought, isn't it? Savatandaka is saying, what? Hey, we accept conceptual designation, okay, right? But something has to exist from its side, isn't it? It's just a combination thing. So therefore, the magician's trick works very well. We have pebbles, we have spectators, we put mantra on both sides, everything works well. Whereas for Prasangika, nothing exists from its side, so the fake snake as a snake works well, right? The coiled rope, nothing in the coiled rope, right? We see anything, anything to do with snake. So it's just a mere projection, mere misperception, you want to call it, isn't it, right?
What that tyranny did that, the death was Charashirami. Yomar said, "Death, Michelle, they could say, Chevan Gabo used to order." She said, "I shall not rob this in that decision."
So the great masters say that actually the Savatandaka Madhyamika standpoint and the Prasangika Madhyamika standpoint are very close, right? But there is a distinction, and it's kind of sometimes found difficult to be able to differentiate between the two, but those examples do help, right, to some extent, because those examples, how they use it, then we started to say it makes sense in each school of thought, isn't it? But it's very hard to differentiate between these two schools of thought because they are quite close now, right? It's a matter of designation and mere designation, right? There's that, right? So close, yeah.
Oh, Tibetan is considered Lin Jami, the Daranshi made the chair. Consider their name, Sini Majepa, Tijiri Shimisa, Shesons, Jubaran Redion, Long de Jane, Tonti, Joban Zedo, They chew me so was a garnish. And the Quincy shoulder cargoes. That chew me so says the lady there's a Quincy's house out. Yet it was the guy of Martina. They're going to top of them shout. And the shed that they couldn't chew me that they go Marison. The show on the card was what this is.
So on page 181, that kind of a auto commentary citation from Introduction to the Middle Way, it reads, thus, in neither of the two truths does it intrinsically exist. So this is a complete rejection of the views of permanence and annihilation. Moreover, there is a connection with the effects of action even after a long time after an action has ceased. This is reasonable even without constructing things like the continuity of the basic consciousness, that storehouse consciousness, the non-perishing or acquisition. Okay? How is this? So as Geshe explained, so from Prasangika's point of view, right, both truths, conventional truth, Samvritti Satya, ultimate truth, Paramartha Satya, neither of these truths exists intrinsically, right? And so when they say that things don't exist intrinsically, they don't mean that they don't exist at all, right? So that middle view is free of the two extremes, right? The extreme of permanence, because if you do assert things that intrinsically existent, then you fall into the trap of permanence. But Prasangikas are saying things are not truly existent. But things are not truly existent does not mean things don't exist at all. So you are free from the the extreme of nihilism there. So you're free of those two extremes. And it's not necessarily, in some sense, we could say that Prasangikas are purposely kind of refuting or refuting the standpoints of Savatantrika, Madhyamika, or other schools of thought, Vaibhasikas. By their standpoint, right, through implication, if you will, we can see that those who assert there's a non-perishing thing, or there's acquisition thing, or there's a combination of something, all those views are kind of rejected, right? Through implication, when you say that both truths are non-intrinsically existent,
Oh dear, that and almost you were on because the here along the road, the Dudaji was didn't hear, yes.
No.
Oh dear, much the tube saw that then Tawa the Rekan, they Nami with their Gomez, Chaya Maris. Said the later year just do me do me and then Jibu Yaman and Jibu Tibet, that was Mimi by Yaman and Jibu said, Mimi was you. And the quality had Jundor of Town Draman, and the court Karsati, due to the Jibu to the Katan Shaya Marva. Said the later year just 2 million, 2 million, 10 million, and later I got you. What did that later said? 6 years, 10 Sungo, and that later shower, what it is for
that. Karma and its effect are, free of intrinsic existence, isn't it? If they were to exist intrinsically, then there could not be a dependent arising. They could not exist dependently, isn't it? Yeah? And so if they were to exist intrinsically, then it's very hard to differentiate between the cause and effect, isn't it? Things are permanent, right? How do you differentiate between what is cause and what's effect, right? That issue comes up. So if you assert that karma is permanent, then how can it produce a result without undergoing some kind of change, right? Because to bring about something, you have to go through the process, do something. So for permanent reality, that's not possible, isn't it? So if we assert that karma is permanent, is intrinsically existent, so basically we are destroying the whole theory of karma, law, isn't it? Then karma cannot be a cause, it cannot produce any effect. So the whole presentation or the framework of law of karma is dismantled. That's what the Prasangikas are saying.
What is that? Because Rangi Shiva the Dushi Namidi. Because Namiji party near the Tabashi. And in Jina, Shivan Jew say, T. Cho la Shigbago Murungus. Tita, Le Rangi Shiva Dushi Yamana called Tagba. Yamana Shiva. 다시 다 가르치 맞으세요. 그 준비도 말이지. 대신에 다들 내랑시 맞고 shago 기존도 들이지. 라지 좀나对面是这个啥嘛来吧？不就见上的这不中是，他过这见嘛就上嘛是，这个下面是吧？让一直过，老多就这个啥意思？这个下几个人清楚是吧？其实这个。
So for Prasangika, everything is merely designated reality. So that really frees their standpoint or the reality from the two extremes of permanence and nihilism. You know, if we assert that karma is intrinsically existent or permanent, right? Then it has to exist forever. And then it cannot produce a result. How do you differentiate between the cause and effect, right? And if you say that karma is, in their standpoint, impermanent, then impermanent things do disintegrate and cease to exist, then it becomes completely non-existent, right? That is a nihilistic point of view, right? So you fall into the traps of eternalism and nihilism, asserting karma as intrinsically existent, non-dependent reality, isn't it? Because when you talk about karma, right, the conditions together, things happen, isn't it? In intrinsic reality, you can't talk about aggregation of cause and conditions because that's not possible, you know. So this is why Prasangika says we assert that you know, phenomena are merely designated realities.
What is that? 다바다 제발 더 자중도 바바바시도 마시지 내가니 유정도 논야 내남이 내남이 디부슈미 디부다 제와니 군신나바시바 유도 취미서도 타발라서 요소 떠바메바스 야 태어이노스 다시서 도바다도 레셔샤드 취미서서 타바세야 저거네 그 군시세야 대단자 쉬어 말이서다 어디 가가시 뭐 그런 저가는 그런 시모를 때리 떠바떠바떠바 때리 걸어가 인레가 샤도리스 디스거스.
So on page 181, somewhere in the middle, that's quote from the Fundamental Wisdom, which reads, since there is no intrinsic cessation, this has power even without the basic consciousness, that storehouse consciousness. Know that even after a long time, after an action ceases, the precise effect will arise. So that's what the Prasangikas are saying, that in our standpoint, because things do not exist intrinsically, everything is merely designated by terms and concepts. So therefore, we really don't have to labor to say, well, there is Alayan Vijnan or storehouse consciousness, right, that stores the karma, right? We don't have to end up saying that, well, there's something different with the karma called non-perishing one, promissory note, right? We don't have to say there's karma, something called acquisition. So all of those things, we don't have to bother with it, right? Because those all are not required in our position. Everything is what called dependent arising, and that dependent arising is really pretty much based on the mere designation, and everything functions as such,
What is because this is the young Lenam Jibutam, Giovanni Kunshi number Shibi, Juntam, Chumisawata, Tabasa, Yosa Taba Meva Yateva, Shidashan. Consideration she did in Gabo, Tijuku, La Lingua, dribu yansan shong riba xie sung. Wonja tanyi legi pakja, goji zangna, tendu zang, ringawe pakja goshi rinpa kangsa zang, sim kangsa zang, simju zoba song sos. Ote shena pakja goshi zangni mewa mares, ini ya ini timra, meja karsa, wonja tanyi di pakja goshi dala, tendu zang, tendu wasidu, ta zozho ye, ringa seya di, samsu to koya she, ote namsha dhibo ini shagres, pakja goshi dala, jita khansa dala sha, ta ya kapka karsa di, namshi dala sha dho, ya kapka khansa koran dala sha dho, ote che ya res, ote sugase.
So this relating to that kind of like the auto commentary section cited in the middle of page 181. So Prasangikas are saying that also the randomness of things, right? Things happen and then things don't happen. So that also indicates that things are not intrinsically existent, isn't it? So there may be sometimes a difference in terms of what a Purusha or person is. Sometimes a person is simply kind of acknowledged as a designation on the collection of aggregates. And some others might say, well, person is really the mind of that person, right, the mental consciousness. So those differences come about, but all of them are, right, nothing is intrinsic examples here, isn't it? That's what it's saying.
Yeah. Lenga begins Rashi Mevale, Jews, Jubale, Pegoni Tens, Melamipa the Tonan, say you learn a shower Jeju. Take a guy here, legend, Jibu is. She son la. Tea she did Jubaran Rele, Silver Dotchamba, Jibosho did the pen. Michi ye milona, usually for me some modern. Since you tell me that, they nearly say, usually for me some more channel. Give a shamble, this is the same. Here's a pattern. Tea told Johnny, give a shamble, taking the Shiva Suzu, Tuba the Medeba. Make the Sugnam Tony Ye Dewajo Sugna Mumber Shende Mumber Shamba Journey Shaba Java Shadow Shazo songs. But he made battle Carson. There is busy by Melona and the permits of Matremina. Tell the bear never short of the mean. Ni said the shower jack or the Lumotor she was. The ticket memory of the you permit the Kaka Yamaro or did you want to say?
Did a courage but a skin.
La
Chetam Jetoba,
should I double the mother's usually one of the so magic dress, middle of the shower jack, she was.
So Geshe read from the bottom page 181 and top of 182. So at the bottom of page 181, there is a citation from Introduction to the Middle Way, which reads, fools become attached to objects that they were observed in a dream, even while awake. Likewise, from an action that has ceased and has no intrinsic nature, results arise. And then the commentary on that lines is given in the Introduction to the Middle Way, citing the Sutra of Transmigration there, O Great King, and all of that. So Geshe explains that someone who dreams of a beautiful lady in his dream, and maybe he dreamed of doing something with her in the dream, whatever. When he wakes up, he must still feel like, he had that real experience. But actually, really, he's still attached to that dream, but in reality, there was nothing, isn't it? There was no woman, really, he saw in the dream existing in reality objectively. It's just his dream that, he was with her, isn't it? So like that, Prasangika said that nothing exists objectively, intrinsically. Everything is merely designated, like the things we see or experience in a dream state. Right? The things we see in the dream state, they don't have objective reality, isn't it? So just like that, phenomena are not objectively or intrinsically existent.
What the cause she so Jewish was sure calling on Jigden part of the poor. Mela Chipoa, the Jawa Ngomaya Jodi, here ne Len Sumiso and Mono, she Baji. Chipoa Jawa Tonta Mivato, Tanya the Yavato, Lady Sumiso, so then do. Taking the love to so tell us there, should have that major, let the review Mingawato. Ranchi Major, Tongue, Tongue should have Mingawe, Titan, the Yap the same Jerry, Dolly Tendo, do it 10 day. Say, Dotty, long Chanley Jump. Mishik, ye, Minuna. Usually, for some years old, Mamma, don't you me to Jomo? Congo Doyle, Lunga, she tembe, she is a jizzy part to Passy. Berja, most of my debata in Bay. Jessica, Pumbo, Dolly, she do Deba, the Pazilla, Sheva show. Teta, she may lay she will live Joanna, and me to me down. Nami Shaw, Jimmy John Shena, T. John Mizu, Jubale, Shedder, Uni, Bensonga, Rara, Jacket number, Tongue, we should never mind that take it, take it. Me, let me see, she's out there, she ever, Tonga, Rara, Jacket Nanki. Ribonge raso menoe yeva tar le raji mela gasinja nami shoma sibe le jibu jonge shom sibe le mi joma somlas der mase le de le jibu so neva shiteva pe tendo stirda seda anel Toba Tabato in any Gaga Chibari was in the Chibari Maris. This is a big rare glass on and the trashes of and the Karu Moka of the Tongan method. Jivon rather Mazama de Tomara.
Law.
Jivon.
No.
What is it?
No.
Come never Chiba and checked on the talk of a Yeva Yamas.
No. So. The Pedic cartoon got a shade order.
La
Pedic cartoon got a
Tibetan,
shade.
that Tomata was in the Gagabe, Chiba Dogers, Lara, that much of a relative dragon of Tongue, you know, my citizen, and Tomata was in the Ganga Chiba Maris.
The Chiba little got a Chavache, maybe. So Geshe read. The remaining things on page 182 and top of page 183 there. So I started to explain. The main point here is that because Prasangika's claim that phenomena are all merely designated, nothing exists intrinsically in and of themselves, isn't it? And then somebody, let's say, might say that, well, that means all phenomena should be just same. We cannot differentiate among them because all are merely designated, right? Prasangika said, like, no, you don't have to worry about that. But even among the things that are non-existent, there are some things right? Even they are non-existent, you may perceive like they exist, but others they don't, you know. And the example given here is that of what we call Trasha Zaparnava. Translated here is a floating hair, right? That due to some eye disorder, you can see the cascade of like hairs falling down, although there's no such thing exists. So that eye disorder can only see that, right, as if the hair pieces falling down, but their eye cognition cannot perceive a horn on a rabbit's head, right, although that's also non-existent. So even though things which are non-existent, there is a difference, right? Some eye disorder can see this one thing but not the other, right? So therefore, they say that all things are merely designated, but they don't have to be just the same or identical, in other words. Yeah. So because once we're getting to the next point here, so Geshe would like to stop there and we will catch up from the point 2 next time. Our unique way of positing the entity of disintegration or disintegratedness. And so I'll go back to our Dharma friends in the cyberspace, and then we'll come back here. Oh, we don't have, so it's all ours. Would anybody like to start today? Losonla.
So one abandons the imprints of objects and self, then karma is extinguished.
Say it again.
So if one abandons the imprints of objects and person, then the karma is extinguished.
Oh, once I say imprints, the karma is abandoned, the karma is extinguished. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll check
Like,
this. Okay. Yeah.
So both subject and object is dependent on imprints.
Which subject and object depend on the imprint?
The subject and the object are dependent on imprints.
Okay.
If one abandons the imprints, then there's no karma.
Okay. Quran condition this would again. Leda leg pagzachi or wagon. That was the 10 meter wash ago or wagon. Chidu Kanlia and so leg pagza the Sebainas wagon. And led the pet mail child to go west. The leg pagza or led the guard to go wagon. Lay gas and leg pagza or wa. The pagza the Sebaina wagon. And led the pet for a mail child west.
Pagza the Kashina.
Pagza the Selsona. Pagza the Pagza members or the Pagza Saber wagon, Mabcha, General Lady Mabcha Vesa. Lady Pagza
the Selsona.
Sermon
Lady Dibusu.
Or that Dibu means and Lady Koram Mabcha.
That Lekora Mabcha.
Pedro
do means that's Sasara.
That lady Pagza second daily using 10 Bedawashaku or Vesa. Okay, that's right. So the subject, object, that dependency, we can talk about the karma and the imprints. When the imprints are abandoned instead of ripened, right, completely, then that karma is gone. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can tell. Yeah.
So if you abandon the subject and abandon the object, then no karmas can exist.
We are not talking about abandoning subject. We are saying that once the...
I understand what you're saying, but I'm asking another question.
Okay.
So karma is dependent on a subject and an object.
Right.
But if you abandon both, then there's no karma.
If you abandon, so what is karma dependent on?
On imprints. Imprints determine the person, imprints determine the object.
No, that's what I understood.
Yeah.
But you said karma has subject and object. Karma is dependent on the subject. Who's the subject we're talking about?
Me.
For you, okay. So, and then the subject and object is the karma, right? So when the karma ripens its imprint, that karma is gone. Now you said, does that mean you are gone also, subject?
I guess that's my main question.
Is
and
that
there's
the question,
nobody
right?
home.
That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Paraphrase a little bit.
Right.
What if somebody abandons eliminates the seeds of grasping a subject and object, or self and phenomena?
Okay.
Will they create karma?
Okay, we did create karma. But that changes your question, right?
No, I'm not. Well, sort of like that, but I'm talking about abandoning the objects and the person. It's similar.
Right.
Similar.
So, okay. So
But I'm not talking about.
Yeah. I'll give his hints. He will have his chance. So I'm just trying to understand. So what you are saying is, understand me right? So that I have to report right, get it right. So what you're saying is that you as a person created karma. Karma ceases to exist. It leaves imprints. When the imprint is abandoned, right?
Imprints of the person. Imprints of the person and imprints of the objective phenomena. Abandoning both imprints of the person, imprints of objective phenomena.
Oh, so what's the imprint of the person?
Me, the person.
You are not an imprint. You are a person.
Oh, there's a collection of imprints. What if I want to abandon the subject is a collection of imprints, and it's imputed with a name.
Yes, you are imputed as a name, but how does the imprint work that? Yeah. That's what I don't understand. Yeah.
You said a person is dependent on the imprints. That's what you said. A person is dependent on the. Is that what you said?
Imprint, right?
Well, there was many things I said before that.
Yeah.
Right.
It led up to that.
Right.
Okay, so yes.
The basic premise that you're proposing is that a person depends on their imprints, and then from that you're going.
That's one, and I'm also saying just also objects the same way.
Yes.
Right.
And I think that's the problem.
So what?
Problem?
Yeah.
It's a question, not a problem.
No.
That's the issue.
No. No, I understood part of your word. I'm still not correct because I can't report the Geshe. Is you talk about person as an imprint. Which part I'm still not. I understood the karma and the imprint.
The subjective consciousness
Yes.
is dependent on imprints.
Yes, you are dependent on your coming imprint.
The
Yes.
person is dependent on.
Right. But what's the person's imprint? Sorry.
Anger, desire, whatever imprint. So they go to make up the person, the self.
Okay. So if that imprint is abandoned, is the person abandoned at the same time? Is that what it is to say? Is that the question? If that imprint is abandoned, then the subject person, is that abandoned as well? Is that your question?
No, the question is, yes, but also objects are abandoned too.
Right. Okay.
So both of those, both are abandoned.
Okay.
There's no more karma.
Huh?
No more karma, right?
So no more karma created. Is that what you're thinking?
I'm checking on that to see what.
Now,
I'm going to say no more karma. I'm going to see what the Lama says.
Okay, let me try with this. Hopefully, sometimes Geshe is very good and he will get the right answer. Hopefully, I'll try this because part of that is very. Korangi this organ, quite to what check the cock was in a column like the Kismakuchidana. This organ that lay son and lay gun and paksa your wagon. The paksa the pangba in us or that was pangba that they were around me, but Chashan the Grawage. Leg paksa pangba in us. Any leg paksa pangba in that lady pangba so that never char was or the Chivatan did that could you do again. That Kurgi leg paksa more Kangsagi paksa the good again. That Kangsagi paksa and Quayma, Kangsagi paksa, Kona Kangsaro again. 박사 내가 강사기 박사 갈라서
God 내가 가요 그 되더라
맞다 그 돼서 이렇게 강사 박사라는 가래라라다 지금 강사 박사를 그저렇게 콩로요래 즉 요로 와서 그러게 다 콩로데 되게 다 빵바이나 다 강사데 매버 차로 그러려고 해서 다 간제 던다로
아니
레그 박사 매버 차 레 매버 차로 그러와 다 코라 강사 박사 콩로데 매버 차는 코 매버 차로 그래서
그거 하셔야지 콩로 매버 차도 강사 매버 차도 내가 가다 처시야가 좋아로
Okay. So let's see, hopefully this answers you all the questions. One, I'm sure, definitely, but other part where... So let's tackle this aspect. So first we'll deal with the karma and its imprint, okay? They are dependent on each other. So if the imprint is abandoned, right? So then that karma is abandoned as well. Okay, that part's very clear. Now you talk about you as a person creating imprint, right? And you said imprint example is anger inside you. If you abandon that, right? Is that what you said, right? Right. So if you abandon that, it doesn't mean that you, right, the one who had that anger is abandoned as well. Are you with me? The anger is gone. You abandoned it, but you still exist. Otherwise, it makes no sense to study and practice Dharma, he said, right? Along with abandoning the anger, if we abandon ourselves, then there's no point in practicing.
That's understandable.
Good.
Okay. Another question.
Yeah, sure.
You were talking about mentioning dreams, that it's just a dream.
Sure.
So I dreamt about Dzong Rinpoche 5 years before I met him.
Okay.
He came in my car because I was looking for him.
Okay.
And showed me a little blue Buddha hidden water in my car.
Mm-hmm.
And monks were chanting around him.
Okay.
And it took me 5 years. I didn't know who he was.
Okay.
But it was just a dream.
Yeah,
but
sure.
there was a real Dzong Rinpoche.
Right.
Okay.
You didn't know then, right?
I didn't know it
met
was 5
him.
years before
Sure.
I met him.
Okay.
So I'm just questioning this thing about dreams or dreams.
Oh, sure. That's a good one. Yeah. That understood. Kona condition this that and the pitching now can show them that talk about thousand any rangwen group the yom and the young when the yom like pedal again and the niglam now tang be pime in the niglam karitang with diran share la brawage. Niglam now tang be pime and she when a yom at the sun nik says in a pime they should chuck by Jason a yom at la brawage. Deep pesharoa. That a pedal drawata go that right. When a Koran in the Jones, Nema song which a Tangujan Manjang on a location in the Roa. Capture song which a Nilam Dang is a Roa. Because in the song, Ramajan like the Kade, Kade, walk to me, didn't miss you and I mean a Roa. Got downs and long my surely, when they didn't miss those are our song, Ramajan like J. Jones are Roa. Just a call a Nilam Dang Roa again. Again, this is what Nilam Dang the good song was a walk single, but didn't miss Kade. Shula, long air, Shula song, Ramajan like Kansas, the Kade Severs, and Nilam Dang the Roa. This is it.
당기도 지금 제모서 당기도 분명히 배 예보도시 디레신 이놈단 이세도다 디레 내가 저도 체인을 지고 거기서 나가면서 서울에서 매번 당속으로 하고
맞다. 그래서 뭐지? 당보다게 그 서울은 라게 강사지 유명 거라 코란 요 말하게 남다 거라 kenza mi kenza sab지 니람 당대요와 민란의 서울은 뭐지? 라고도 다 롱에 쇼라야 뭐해다네 미 강사 서울은 뭐지? 라게 두스다 거라 투주스 거라 다 갱이 됐은 거게 박자 내레스 당면에 데다 서울은 뭐지? 뭐네 라게 지요라게 대화 가르쳐 다기 니람 나한테게 매베페로하게 다 나한테 그 라베데게 유베차더라 니람 나한테 서울은 뭐지? 요로다게로 어디 이게 쓰시죠?
저를 제시야 문제지 당기도 매로 내가 분명히 배 예보시바다 또 디게도 요 말이스 라르면서 지금 분명히 산 요 말슬라 요 말아
데데레 얘는 데데 말 타기데 매베 페샤로 와게 다 콜라츠 니람 당저데 유베 페샤도 와데 디게 코세바스 마제나 아니게 니글람이나
디게 니로 다가리 니로 사실 이제 요 말이시거라 진짜 니로 당 지금 야보이보다 누구이보 디게 예박하여 뭐 이런 담을 다해라
네 다음에게 다 고란 니람다 소로 버제 고란 제 렌데 여러 지 랍신 디고는 다 콜레지 더박하면서 나오고 와게 그래 콜 땅에 될까지 콜 소로 버제 고갈 신고 고 니람 땅으로 와게
가지 다 디레 저 소소 마오보다 용야 디레 마오보다 용야 디게 리면다 야리
So I was trying to get a clear answer, right? Because Geshe takes in this. I said you have to differentiate. The way I understood it, okay, that's how I have to. Geshe, you have to answer something that makes sense here, right? We go in a very abstract world, nobody understands. So I'm sorry, I have to make that push. Because the example we use is the example of something that doesn't exist in reality, isn't it, right? The one example you have is something that exists in reality. I mean, so as a Geshe, you have to address that distinction, otherwise it's not answering the question, right? So this is what it said. First we said that dreams are examples of, right, we call things that may exist or may not exist, right? It's not a certainty example. Some things we dream. But in your case, what Geshe can also say is sometimes, right, you may dream about something, it's like more predictive, which is going to come. That exactly happened with you, right? Even you didn't know a person called Song Rinpoche, but something, right, you dreamt about, so that was indicator or prediction that you are going to meet this person. Yeah.
It wasn't a dream then.
Right. Well,
somebody told me when you dream about the Lama, it's not a dream, it's a Lama.
Well, at that time you dreamt about it, but that dream is not an example of non-existent, but it's an example of existent that you are going to meet him, right?
I thought you were suggesting that all dreams are dreams.
Oh, that go did like the where somebody Niklam Tangjo in a mere cover building to get the Marella in Bagay.
Yeah, the Nilam Tanzi Gaka Yomar, the Joe Yumar, the Mara.
Yeah, no, the dreams are not necessarily example of non-existence, right? They could, right? That was, go ahead.
I'm going to go to the examples of the twigs and the pebbles and the magician and the audience that sees and the magician that casts the mantra.
Sure.
That one, I think, is a valid and good example that elucidates their point.
Sure.
Now, on the other hand, the example of the snake versus the coiled rope or the fake snake, I think that examples to me is really elucidating validity of the basis versus non-validity of the basis. I don't think it really differentiates intrinsicness from non-intrinsicness.
Okay.
This is how it lands for me. Maybe the English is what's like
Sure. Okay.
coming through here. But if I'm looking at basically like, here's a rope, here's a snake, I'm designating on both. So what? It's, yes, they're both designated. Just one is a valid basis, one is not a valid basis. So
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I understood that question clearly, so that's good thing. Yeah. Morang kandi shwede this gor ke. Dagi ke Umar Rangyo ba ke ane kyuma kenge pede takda kuju du sarwa ke. Koran sungba na shirwa ke. Yude yujen sungde ke ton lai shirwa ke. Da morang danda takra la ya chu la ba da chu la pe shirwa ke. Di morang te bina di kalsa wa rangshi maru pe ro di ko kwad le thum do sa. Morang del khatte ke sena chi dakshi chema email something do ge. Dakshi do ge chu de chu ra ro da ko dakshi chema re sa ro ge. Chu me ba de chu ma ro. Dakshi de chema email ma do chi ge rangshin mandu be ge di pe di koran ge kwad le ke me do sa di. Ke chen so ya.
탁자 주세요.
takra la chu la ba da chu la ba che ro ge. Just mora la de ka di rangshi mandu pe di kwad le ke me do ska re sena chik di dakshi ko chema ra de ko chu ro wa sa ro ge. Chik di dakshi chema ma ro ba ko chu ma ro wa sa ge. Dakshi chema ime ke ra shi ma do chi ge rangshi mandu ke kwad le ke me do so ge.
알레 때때 제가 탁자 셔죠. 탁자 주사 요마라지다.
Yo ma ro na.
타바코는 줄 쳐로. 저.
La ro ba.
줄 코라지다 요라.
La re. Then again dakshi chema di ye wa ma jen ro ba mora samba dakshi chema ime ke ba ma do chi ke kar so rangshi mandu ke di kwad le ke me do ro ge.
제가 나기 세마이 요 세마 요라이자 제가 보니까 저러와. 제가 타베 주다 지다 주인 자가 말이야 뒤송으라.
dakshi chema de la tene dene ke kunyi chik chuyin ba da chim da ka dakshi chema khelen ro ge.
나기 세마데는 오늘 주들 주 소자스 요라다. 타제 주스 소자스 요마라.
La re.
제가
Da dakshi chema de love shanti go ro
나기
yo.
세마메서 거의 채워를 뒤주거라다.
Yeah, Geshe was saying is that, with regard to the real snake, merely designated a snake, and the fake snake, let me call it, right? It's wild robe, it's too much to say. It's a fake snake anyway. So the way you saw it is like, okay, it's a matter of affirming that one is a valid basis and other is not a valid basis, right? What goes along with that is, as we said, from functionality point of view, the real snake, because it is on a valid basis designated, so it functions as a snake. The other one, because it's invalid basis, so it's a mere imputation, it doesn't. So ultimately, when you come up with that you could see that refutes intrinsic reality,
I was at Vajrapani. In the beginning, there was lots of rattlesnakes.
Okay.
They sent me up to the Ridge Kitchen to get something, and they warned me there's a snake on the porch, be careful.
Okay.
I got up there on the porch. I saw the snake. I went along the wall to stay away from it. Got the stuff, came out. I'm going along the wall. And they went, oh, it's just a rag.
What?
It's just a rag.
Kodagasa, Chije looks at some sushi, Kawa, or Wagatua Marda.
라.
Some sushi or Koran.
알레.
Wajabani Shozo Yabag and Chana Doji. Chana Doji Shozo Yabashinana. Or their Konyama doing music, there's a such of Shinana, red snakes took Druji or Gerwa. The or Das Lusa. So when it took Druj Tons, some copper shoe shades or Wage, simple Panya, Yabada to the Shasaka, to Druj Medusa.
Remember, Geshe was saying, he just said today that the magician's illusion doesn't work for prasangikas.
Yes.
But I remember last year
I would say the preferred example. I don't know work or not, we will double check, yeah.
because last year he said that it works for Prasangika as well.
Okay, yeah. Maybe I think it worked, the preferred one. I
A
thought
preferred one.
Right, preferred
Okay,
one, yeah, yeah.
because today
Right.
we heard it doesn't
Preferred,
work.
right. It's
Okay,
preferred.
all right. Thank
Right.
you.
Yeah, yeah, preferred one. Yeah. Okay, so I think Mother's Day, I don't want, one more question, and then I don't want the mothers to go hungry on Mother's Day. And I'm sure they prayer requests again, yeah.
It says here, on page 181,
Yeah.
says this paragraph, the second to the last on the page, says, nevertheless, conventionally, as a mere basis for the infusion of predispositions of karma, it is said that the person is posited as the lasting basis, and the mental continuum is posited as the temporary basis for the infusion of predispositions. Okay, and I understand this to be acceptable. This is what Prasangikas are saying. Now, what does that mean? Person is as the lasting basis, and the mental continuum is posited as a temporary basis, which means that basically they agree with the Sautranticas and Kashmiri Vaibhashikas.
Okay.
But the lasting basis and temporary basis.
Sure. Yeah. The Beijing Nala Rawagin, then the Dichi Yawachik Dwagin, Karsore, Kangsa second this Rawagin. Any Dakalagure, Dangi, Kepecha the Yomar again, to the layer again. Kangsa second the Tanya di Kangsa di any Dires Kasoda, Legi Pakja Shasaki, Ten so Rawagin. Ten Kasoraba, Junior net to get Rawagin. Tigres, and the number 7 second the any Kasor ten Dires Kasor can negative tension rest of the again. Junior never danger that negative tension, the number 7 the negative ten rest again. Kangsa second the junior never ten like a patient I should do again. The god the Karala words are dished.
Ali Kansa the number 7 in the chair, Mary. Then Kari in the Kansa Junior Chikwara number Junior Kuni Julia Jungdung Tirakayo.
Marigan, they let 10 deal again 10 Madengi, or name Madengi, the Cheva Shashaka, the Beja Shunkorana, Roage. Beja Korana Roage. Kansa second the 10 the part temporary net to the Roage. Number 7 second the 10 the Dires can nega with 10 res Roage, Paja, nega with Paja 10 and Shadow the New York. Nega with Paja 10 down, June the Negan, Paja 10 and Shadow.
This thing is that Kansa the Kadu in a good junior, number 7 the Kadu Jevo Jar, Kansa the Ransa Desha, Trekis.
Men the 10 get the Chavishun to dog, 10 Koran, 10 the 10 Chabasha to Wagga, Leg Pazaka 10 Delia, nega with 10 Rojela number 7 shot. That 10 part Tembo June with the Kansa to Wagga. What did you about it?
The number Shana do chair.
My name the best. Oh, did you did it?
I did a Pashaman Nicholas and the Namshi de Namsha Pasha over the Consata the Shaggy against the show.
Oh, did this is your honor, what again?
La. Oh, the neck of the Senate.
Oh, the neck of the what did again?
Oh, this is neck of Senate. Namsha, neck of any Kansa, Shiba Shagmar Sura. This is
Alla Kansa the Tate or temperature. I'm saying the Yomers of Kaloda.
Namsha the Same there was a Paga, he remembers Sura.
Okay. Or maybe this one was very helpful, Gisela, right? Because I don't have the Tibetan text. I say Gisela says, no, they're same. No, they're not same, Gisela. It says not same. So we have to talk about one is lasting, it's one's temporary, right? It's not the same as a Gisela. So I can't say it's the same. So anyway, that was very helpful, Gisela knows stuff. This relates to the issue where, from Prasangika point of view, right, they said a person is a lasting basis in the sense that a person exists, right, even with in terms of path of seeing, right, whether it's a meditative equipoise state or post-meditation period. Whereas the mental consciousness in the meditative equipoise state, it is not there because what you have is uncontaminated base. That's why it's a temporary. So that really answers it, right? That's thanks to Haraba Geshe there. All right, that's a good point to stop. And now I yield back to another Haraba Geshe there for any prayers or anything.
A reminder before we read our prayer requests that this upcoming Tuesday, day after tomorrow, is a talk day. So please keep that in mind for those of you who participate in talk. Tumi jamju shungen la ya tsele deba su Ix Lewis khazan chongdwa su che dene deje wangmo khazan dari dyuna chongboras deje wangmo konan yigi chedo tsende horan yigi chedo tungme ta dene tsedan deba tsedan demba jeni ton sarwa ani 주변주 토를 강행해 되었지. 제니 돈 데네 줄리 단 브랜든 노 사산 셔셔디 브랜든 디 네버 차더샤 홍이제도 니시승다 용제도 등면다 데네 야 줄리엔 그냥 주변주 토를 강행해 되었지. 줄리엔제 데네 Jina dan John Ching Kensen Nebani Yachid Motune Tumenaranas. Prayer requests for those who have recently passed are requested for Sue Ix Lewis, who passed away yesterday, and then Dejin Wangmo, who passed away on May 7th. So please keep Sue and Dejin in your thoughts and prayers. May they be free from all suffering and purified of all negative karma accumulated since beginningless times. May they be reborn with all precious freedoms and endowments. May they meet the Dharma and a qualified guru and quickly achieve liberation and enlightenment. Prayers requested for those who are still with us include prayers for Julie and Brandon No. Brandon is suffering from severe Bell's palsy. Prayers are requested also for Jillian, who is suffering from financial difficulty and daily hardship. Jenny Don, who is also suffering from financial hardship and difficulty. And then continued prayers are requested for Gina and John Ching, who are suffering from cancer. May the individuals whose names I just read, along with all sentient beings, be free from all obstacles, hardship, and negative karma. May their wishes and prayers be fulfilled. May they be guided by the blessings of the three jewels, and may they experience everlasting peace and happiness.
Thank you, Kishla. And let's do the Avalokiteshvara prayer for the deceased, and then we will do the Medicine Buddha prayer for the living. Chadong Kolu Yuve, Gyawo Don, Jendong, Gyawa Sangbe, Sangye Don, Kangla, Kangdu, Tela, Tedung, Jumba, Jenre, Sela, Changze, the Omani, Peme, Omani. Omane beme honre gewadi nyodo da jere sewan rubyo ne dowa chi yamale de salam geba sho toje kunla nyombe jomden de senzan tebe ngendu dongme dozo neze sangye Bindu Yayi Vela Chanze Om Namum Bhagavade Begaze Guru Binduya Tabaranzaya Tadagadaya Arahade Samya Sambudaya Theata Om Begaze Begaze Ma Begaze Beg Raja Samugade So Theata Om Begaze Begaze Ma Begaze. Dedam Begaze Begaze Ma Begaze Begaze Raja Samugade So Gawa De Yodo Da Membe Yevon Lova Jama Levan De Salam Gebara Show. Dedication prayers, page 3. Lord Yaze Udum Bega De Gesam Pove Judo Mimba Shin Temba Zinla Wando Gicho Tanyan Jugun Jola Sovan De Mawan Dame Gunjan Dongan De Kari Jongso Ninda Sejaba Jamgun Jawa Niwa Yapse Tangson Dinzi Mabe Shiba Zu Dinjin Chebe Kingon Zebe Sheje Nigun Changju Dendugo Longdo Tamje Bebe Duja Gazu Gundo Shabden Sho Tezan Gondan Cheje Zombe Yongzo Yure Tobe Nyakepshin Longri Dejin Nube Ben Tubden Kanri Dangbo Shabden Sho Dona Gongmen Zeba Namda Tendam Zobe Pende Jongwe She Gundo Gyumi Chebe Chenle Gezan Duje Dendo Shabden Sho Jije Lame Toge Melam Gezan Duje Tendam Sangme Tu Chozon Todo Chido Chida Memben Dungu Lundo Sho Ramjan Shingen Gombo Seba Men Zodo Namje Keyong Joma Sho Chozo Seye Tazo Tamje Tade Mishi Choge Ngudozu Tuden Chidang Losan Gyawa Shiru Tenban Zinbe Beyuanze Tade Duja Jonggu Shenye Yangdu Ninje Wongbo Shabden Sho Jiden Sunggun Chana Beme Tenbe Zawa Soso Taba Namda Sudin Yangda Langba Ye Losan Jenden Bedo Shabden Tujun Gyaltsen Nonzin Yangbe She Samjo Namje Changzin Jombe Gomjun She La Songju Dibu De Tenbe Ngada Chenbo Shabden Chebe Dongwa Kowan Bojo De Zunbe Rilan Siyu Bumda Zunbe Denden Deshe Tangza Ju Kidu Xinyin Chenbo Shabden Kebe Langdo Gushe Zeda Je Zunbe Chara Niezo Raksa Sangbe Dije Ligun Yishen No Shumde Xinyin Chenbo She Tezan Lola Jove Dende Je Menjong Taju Sangme Sijin Labjin Zidin Dendu Beshawa Zende Xinyin Chenbo Shabde Chozon Yawa Seje Qinla Da Tuden Damjin Songme So Daja Lasang Dabe Denbe Do Chida Lendo Sho Zhangzhou Simzhou Rinpo Je Maje Bana Jeju Je Yewa Nyamba Gongne Gongdong Pewa Sho Dongni Dawa Rinpo Je Maje Bana Jeju Yewa Nyamba Mewa Gongne Gongdong Pewa Sho Sa Shi Bujin Jushin Medo Zhang Rira Lingxi Ninde Genba Sangye Shendo Mede Dogun Nanda Jinla Juba Sho Kari Rabe Gorbe Shingam Su Pendan Dewa Malu Jongwe Jenre Siwan Tenzin Dorjee Shabe Shantideva Tenjo Je Yidam Guru Ratna Mandela Niryandaya Min Jawa Kundo Yangda Lama Zang Reme Chöje Bela Longju Sada Lamje Yunden Happy Mother's Day to all, and hope all mothers get treated today.